the Galactic Council convened in their grand chamber, an expanse of luminescent stone and shimmering holograms, each delegate seated beneath the emblem of their respective star systems. At the center stood Overseer Clythar, his serpentine form coiling with quiet authority. He addressed the assembly with an air of finality, his voice smooth and commanding. "Humans," he began, the word weighted with disdain. A primitive, fragile species clinging to the third planet of a mediocre star. Their reluctance for conflict and insistence on diplomacy mark them as weak. A species unfit for resistance. Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had expanded by conquering or assimilating lesser species, none of which had managed to resist for long. They prided themselves on their collective might, their war doctrine designed to crush opposition swiftly and efficiently. Humanity, they reasoned, would be no different. A younger delegate, Arvok, raised a cautious query. "There are reports, Overseer, of a peculiar subset within humanity, the ones they call Americans. Their history is troubling. They possess a reputation for innovation in war, a stubbornness that borders on recklessness." Clythar dismissed the notion with a wave of his elongated limb. Exaggerated tales, no doubt. A minor faction among a scattered species. Humans, regardless of their divisions, will capitulate when faced with the inevitability of our power. The council turned their focus to a shimmering projection of Earth, a blue and green jewel suspended in the void. The strategic analysis showed limited spacefaring capabilities, outdated weaponry, and a chaotic global political structure. A perfect candidate for annexation. "And their response to our previous diplomatic gestures?" asked another delegate. Typical hesitation, and aide replied. "They seek terms, negotiations, always delaying. They fear open confrontation." This was met with derisive laughter. Clythar allowed a faint smile to touch his lips. "Then it is settled. We will send them an ultimatum. Surrender your sovereignty and join the Empire as subordinates, or face obliteration. They will not risk war." Even as the council dispersed, certain members harbored quiet unease. They had studied humanity's wars, their capacity for destruction, their moments of unity in the face of annihilation. But these concerns were quickly drowned out by the Empire's collective arrogance. After all, every species they had encountered before had succumbed to their overwhelming force. Meanwhile, on the edges of the Empire's territory, whispers persisted about the Americans. Stories of their unorthodox tactics, their refusal to back down even in impossible situations, and their ability to adapt faster than any foe could anticipate. These stories were dismissed by the majority as myths, tales told to bolster morale among the weaker races under the Empire's dominion. And yet, as the Empire's vast fleet prepared to descend upon Earth, a sense of unease lingered in the shadows of their confidence, a quiet forewarning that this conquest might not go as planned. The ultimatum arrived in the form of a sleek, imposing emissary ship that hovered over Earth's atmosphere, broadcasting its message across every major frequency. The voice was cold and mechanical, devoid of any emotion, as it delivered the Galactic Empire's terms. Humanity was to surrender unconditionally, dismantle its military capabilities, and submit to the authority of the Empire. Non-compliance would result in total planetary neutralization. Leaders from every corner of Earth gathered in a tense virtual summit. The ultimatum had struck a chord of fear and uncertainty, with many nations advocating for negotiation. Humanity had faced existential threats before, but this was different, an enemy far beyond their understanding. Yet amidst the deliberations, a single voice cut through the noise. The American representative, a seasoned general with a stern demeanor, leaned forward into the camera. "We're not surrendering," he said firmly. "Not now, not ever." The response was swift. A small fleet of Empire ships descended into Earth's orbit, their sleek metallic forms glinting menacingly against the sun. The Americans were the first to respond, mobilizing a task force with alarming speed. The USS Resolute, a state-of-the-art warship, led the charge. Its captain, a no-nonsense strategist, calmly issued orders as the ship powered up its weapons. When the two forces finally made contact, The initial exchange seemed almost diplomatic. The Empire's emissary, a towering, multi-limbed figure, projected an air of smug superiority. "Your defiance is admirable," it said, "but futile. Your species lacks the strength or ingenuity to resist us." The American captain merely smiled, a grim expression that held no mirth. "You're about to find out just how wrong you are." The first engagement was swift and brutal. The Empire's ships, relying on their advanced shielding and overwhelming firepower, moved in to crush the smaller human fleet. But they underestimated the Americans' ability to think outside the bounds of traditional warfare. A series of precise, coordinated strikes targeted weak points in the Empire's shielding systems, flaws no other species had identified before. The USS Resolute unleashed a barrage of EMP pulses, disabling several of the Empire's ships in moments. A second wave of drones, controlled remotely, swarmed their formations, delivering devastating payloads to critical systems. The Empire's initial arrogance gave way to confusion. Their rigid military doctrine, designed for overwhelming displays of power, faltered against the Americans' adaptability. The humans fought with a ferocity and precision that seemed almost alien, exploiting every vulnerability with ruthless efficiency. By the time the first skirmish ended, the Empire had suffered significant losses, something they had not anticipated from such a primitive species. As their fleet retreated to regroup, the galactic commander overseeing the operation watched the battlefield with growing unease. "This was no accident," he muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "They know how to fight us." From the bridge of the USS Resolute, the American captain watched the retreating ships with cold satisfaction. "Send a message to the Empire," he ordered. "This is just the beginning." The Galactic Empire regrouped, deploying a larger fleet designed to overwhelm through sheer numbers and firepower. Their commanders, frustrated and humiliated by the initial defeat, vowed to crush the humans swiftly. The plan was simple: surround and obliterate the American forces before they could mount another counterattack. What they did not anticipate was the Americans' readiness for a larger confrontation. While the Empire operated under rigid hierarchies and predictable tactics, the Americans thrived on chaos, creativity, and calculated risk. The next phase of the conflict began before the Empire's fleet even reached Earth's orbit. American cyber specialists launched an unprecedented assault on the Empire's communications and navigation systems. Entire battle formations were thrown into disarray as ships lost contact with each other. Their advanced technology turned into a liability. Some were lured off course by false signals, while others were stranded in open space with malfunctioning engines. Meanwhile, on the ground, American engineers had reverse-engineered captured alien technology, integrating it with their own weapon systems. The result was a devastatingly efficient hybrid arsenal, capable of piercing the Empire's once impenetrable defenses. This was not a mere resistance, it was an evolutionary leap in warfare, one the Empire was unprepared to counter. The Americans took the offensive, launching surgical strikes against key Empire assets. Stealth bombers deployed kinetic weapons that bypassed shields entirely, smashing through the hulls of Empire warships. Orbital platforms, disguised as civilian satellites, revealed themselves as high-powered railgun platforms, decimating entire enemy squadrons before they could react. The Empire's forces began to fracture under the unrelenting pressure. Their commanders, accustomed to fighting species that cowered or surrendered, were unprepared for the Americans' ruthlessness. The humans exploited every weakness, targeting supply lines, command ships, and even the Empire's morale. Captured Empire soldiers were released unharmed but with a clear message: humanity would fight to the last. This act, both defiant and calculated, sowed fear among the Empire's ranks. The thought of a species that refused to break, that fought not just with weapons but with unshakable resolve, unnerved even the most hardened alien warriors. At the heart of the campaign was the American commander, a figure whose calm demeanor masked a fierce determination. From their command center, they orchestrated every move with precision, adapting strategies on the fly to counter the Empire's attempts to regain control. When asked about the cost of such relentless warfare, their answer was blunt. "This isn't about victory or glory," they said. It's about survival, and we will do whatever it takes. The Empire, once so confident in its dominance, now found itself reeling. For the first time in centuries, they were no longer the hunters but the hunted. Desperation set in as their fleets retreated further and further, leaving wreckage in their wake. As the Americans pressed their advantage, one chilling fact became clear. The Galactic Empire had vastly underestimated the lengths to which humanity, and particularly the Americans, would go to protect their home. The battle was far from over, but the tide had irreversibly turned. The Empire's battered fleets limped away from the Sol system, their once pristine ships now scarred and broken. The humans, led by the Americans, had proven to be a force far beyond what the Galactic Empire could have imagined. On board the Empire's flagship, Overseer Clythar stood silently in the war room, his usually confident posture now weighed down by defeat. Reports flooded in. Fleet losses, shattered supply lines, and the psychological toll on their soldiers. The Empire's surrender came not through formal channels but as a desperate plea for negotiation. The humans, despite their overwhelming advantage, had not pursued total annihilation. Instead, they offered terms. The Empire would retreat from Earth and acknowledge humanity's sovereignty, with a binding agreement to never return uninvited. The Empire, faced with no alternative, agreed. The Galactic Council reconvened in a somber session, their arrogance now tempered by the reality of human resilience. Delegates who had once mocked humanity now spoke in hushed tones of their ingenuity and ruthlessness. The stories of American tactics spread rapidly throughout the galaxy. How they turned weaknesses into strengths, adapted alien technology for their own use, and fought with a determination that bordered on terrifying. The Council's analysts worked tirelessly to understand how they had misjudged the humans so completely. They reviewed countless hours of battle footage, dissecting every move the Americans had made. The conclusion was unanimous. It wasn't just their technology or strategy that had won the war. It was their will. On Earth, the mood was one of cautious triumph. Celebrations erupted as news of the Empire's retreat spread. But for the Americans, the victory was bittersweet. The cost of defending the planet had been high, and the scars of war were etched deeply into the faces of those who had fought. The American commander, now hailed as a hero, stood before a global audience and spoke with quiet conviction. "We didn't choose this fight, but we chose to win it," they said. "Not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy. Humanity does not seek war, but we will end it if it comes to our door." The Empire's defeat sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Subjugated species, inspired by humanity's defiance, began to resist their oppressors. In the far reaches of space, whispers of rebellion grew louder. The humans had shown that even the mightiest empire could be humbled, and their story became a rallying cry for freedom. As the Galactic Empire withdrew to rebuild and reassess its strategies, Earth began to prepare for its place among the stars. The humans knew the fight was far from over. Their victory had earned them respect but also painted a target on their back. Yet, as they looked to the future, there was no fear, only resolve. In the quiet darkness of space, the American commander stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, gazing out at the stars. "They called us ruthless," they murmured to themselves. "They have no idea.